Seated. Before we continue, will you please bow your head with me and let us approach our Lord in prayer. Lord, we had quite a first world problem this morning. We couldn't connect to the internet. What a frustration. Can't access files and things that we want to do and want to know. Reminds us that connection with you is immediate, always. Never break down in this connection, because the moment when we say your name and we focus on you, we know that we are connected to the only holy, living God. And to you we come today and we bow before your greatness, your holiness, and your power. We bow before you because you are the one who created all and also us. You are the one that gave us our start date and also will give us our end date. You are the one that decided where we should be today. We many times think it's us, but we know that you are in control of our life stories. So we come this morning to worship you, and through our call to worship, acknowledging your power and presence in our lives, and our praise songs, and our commitment to you. We just want you to know, Lord, that we want to be your children. We want to be your people, your church in this world. We can't do a thing without your guidance. And therefore we ask that through the words we're going to read today and the story we're going to discover, that we may discover some truths that we can apply to our own lives. So, Lord, will you speak through your Spirit and through the words that I need to share today? But may this be God at work in the lives of his people. In your name we ask this. In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. So, many years ago, a lady came to me and she said, after she started to come to our church, I need to talk to you a little bit about the Bible and about faith and about God, because I really do not know that much. So she sat in my office and I said, do you know any Bible stories? And she sort of glazed over a little bit. I said, do you know the creation story? Do you know the story of Noah? Glazed over. I continued through some of these major events, and I said, do you know the story of David? And suddenly her eyes lit up, and she said, yes, I know the story of David. I said, the story of David and Goliath. Yes, I know the story of David and Goliath. It's the boy and his dog. Later on, I discovered it was not David, but Davy. I thought it was David. I had no clue. Remember, I didn't grow up here, so I did not know this story. I said, help me understand this David and Goliath dog thing. Because my Goliath and David didn't have a dog. There was no dog in that story. Except that Goliath told David he looks like a dog, but that's not now where we are. She said, well, my parents on Sunday mornings wanted to sleep in. So they would turn on the TV, and then this story would come up, and that's all I know. And I said, okay, let's start all over. And we start in the beginning, and I started to share with her some of the stories of the Bible. When I was trying to work on a series for the summer, I said to Louise, I'm working on three different things. Habakkuk. There are 8 sermons that I already have on Habakkuk. I had one on Amos. And then I'm working on this thing about life. And that's why I asked you to fill out this form, Life Is, and I will do that later on. But something constantly bugged me, that I need to talk about David. And I've done this many, many years ago. I think during a WOW service, I did something on David. But this thing of David and his life story just came back to me constantly. And this morning, I realized why. And you will see as we continue through my sermon why I think this is really prevalent for us today. The stories in the Bible are real life stories. And the story of David is a story that I think all of us can in a way relate to, because he was just a normal guy. A normal guy that in a way was used by God in a most amazing way. So let's go and look at David and an everyday story. If we can, David is missing. Okay, let me share with you another story. We have a brand new computer in the sound booth. And this computer also has its own personality. So we will get that thing also subdued at some point to actually then work with me a little bit. So, do you think we can get that text? Okay, one moment, and we'll get it back. I know that the tech guys have worked hard the whole week to get this thing to work well. Oh, yeah, okay. So the first part of this text that I'm going to look at is David facing a giant. And I just thought this is really a cool story, a cool picture, you know, because in a sense that is what is happening in the story. Right, let's go. Now I'm going to read a lot this morning, a little bit more than usual, but we need to read the story to really understand how it applies to our life. The Philistines gathered their armies for battle. They were gathered at Sokoh, which belongs to Judah, and encamped between Sokoh and Azekah. And Ephes-dammim, Saul and the Israelites gathered and encamped in the valley of Elah and formed ranks against the Philistines. The Philistines stood on the mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on the mountain on the other side, with a valley between them. It's stuck. Okay, too far. Okay. And there came out of the camp of the Philistines a champion named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a helmet of bronze on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail. The weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze, and he had greaves of bronze on his legs and a javelin of bronze slung between his shoulders. Now, let me just say this. According to what they say, this guy was like almost 8 feet tall, like a typical basketball player. But the weight of all the stuff, they exaggerated a little bit to just show how tough and how big and how strong this guy was. Okay. The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron. And his shield bearer went before him. So the guy walked in front of him with a shield thing. He stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why have you come out to draw up for battle? Am I not a Philistine? Are you not servants of Saul? Choose a man for yourselves and let him come down to me. If he's able to fight with me and kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servants and serve us." And the Philistines said, "Today I defy the ranks of Israel. Give me a man that we may fight together." David said to Saul, "Let no one's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine." Then he took his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand approached the Philistine. Meanwhile, the Philistine with his shield bearer in front of him kept coming closer to David. He looked at David over and said that he was only a boy, ruddy. He looked David over and saw that he was only a boy, ruddy and handsome, and he despised him. He said to David, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. "Come here," he said, "and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field." The first lesson that we find in this text is the giant, the Goliath, that was standing in front of Israel. Israel only wanted to live in peace. They wanted to have joy and fun. They wanted to plant and harvest, have children, marry, and just have an okay life. But time and time again, for 300 years now, it continued. The Philistines would come and encamp on their borders and would threaten them to take away what they had, to take away their harvest, to take away their goods, to take away their children and their wives for slaves, and to kill most of the men. Time and time again, this would come back. We all have, in a sense, these Goliaths that find their way into our lives. When you talk to anyone, most people will tell you, "Well, I only want a life of peace. I really want my life to be okay. I want my family to be happy, and I want to be okay with them, and just make a life that I can at least live and provide for my people." That is the thing that I've heard of most people that end up in my office. Ferdi, all I want in life is just to be at peace with the people around me and to be able to pay my bills and have an okay life. But we know that's not true for many people. We know that in a sense we are also threatened by these things outside that we sometimes feel we can't handle. For a lot of people, it's unemployment. They really struggle to find a job. Now, luckily, that is a little bit better now than it was a few years ago. But for a lot of people, it's underemployment. And underemployment means that you work really hard, but you do not get paid for what you do. So even though you really do your best, you are not recognized for what you provide for the company. That frustrates people so much and is so demoralizing because you know I give so much and I get so little from them. For a lot of people, their Goliath is a relationship that they can't really handle that well. A relationship that constantly bears down upon them. That's like a shadow. When you wake up in the morning, the shadow is there. When you drive home, there's a rock in your chest because you're not sure what you're going to get when you get back home. For a lot of people, this Goliath may be their finances. Been trying over and over again to pay their bills. I know people in our church that work 2 or 3 jobs only to be able to make it. I know someone in our church that's actually now living in his car just to sort of make it. So for a lot of people, we have these Goliaths standing in front of us, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. Maybe it's a health issue. That bugging thing that you have in the morning that nobody understands. And you can't explain to people how bad you really feel. And they look at you and you look normal on the outside, but on the inside you're broken. I know for some people, their Goliath is this. What happened this morning in Orlando? I didn't know. When I wake up on a Sunday morning, I grab a cup of coffee and I head to church. I don't really listen to the radio or turn on the TV. So I was told this morning as I was leaving my house that this happened. That I think 20 people were killed and 40 wounded, whatever. I do not have any real detail. And then my computer went dead. And then the internet went dead. So I do not know the detail. But I know that a lot of people are really concerned in our country about the things that are happening around us. It's out there. I know of people that are too afraid really to fly now and to go to certain places because of the fear of terrorists and the attacks that will happen to them. The main reason why I prepared this sermon, and I knew that I had to preach about this, is that my Goliath, my personal Goliath and concern is not only this, but it's the culture that we now live in. The fact that we now live in a culture where people do not love God anymore. We now live in a culture in America where it is like Goliath standing there and challenging us as Christians and say, get out of my way. We don't like you guys anymore. We live now in a culture where it's sort of the in thing to be not part of a church and not really to believe in God anymore. But that's not the only problem. The problem is also that it's not only an apathy against Christianity or the church, but it's actually now also a negativity and an attack on the church that's happening more and more frequent. During this last 2 months, I don't know if you guys picked up on it, but there were week after week news briefs on things that happened at graduation ceremonies all around the country. Where in a school in Ohio, they can't play the Messiah music anymore because it has a Christian type of connection. And that now meant that the school couldn't play any classical music at the graduation because it was complained that classical music now has a Christian connection because it was written for the church. Can you believe this? And you know what happened? The school toppled over and said, okay, and they played all kinds of rubbish. Because one person complained, and the ACLU, that thing, got after the school. That's my concern. So here we are like Israel. We've been pushed back, and there's Goliath standing there. And Goliath now in our country many faces. Many, many different faces. Faces that is trying to tell us that you guys need to get out of the way because we are going to take what has always been yours. The Philistines said, today I defy the ranks of Israel. Give me a man that we might fight. When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistines, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. The option, when you face these Goliaths in your life, these giants, is that a lot of people at some point just give up. Now, I've said this before, and I say this with huge respect and with carefulness today. Lots and lots of people really do struggle with mental illness. But it is shocking when I heard and read the numbers of how many people in our country are on antidepressants. Why are our people on antidepressants in such a number? Because I think people just can't cope anymore. They are overwhelmed by the giants that face them. All these things that constantly come and take your joy away and your fun away and your life away, that tries to squash you into a little hole where you can't be who you want to be. And we have now, in a sense, not only a sick culture, but a sick society of people that just can't deal with this anymore. And that was, to me, the most amazing thing in the story, was the passiveness. So Saul stood there with his whole army, but they did nothing. It was too much for them. And this attack was relentless. For 40 days, the Philistine came forward and took his stand morning and evening. And isn't it true that these attacks come our way relentlessly? That you think the moment you can relax and just have a little bit of fun, there's something new that comes your way and you are pushed down into your hole again. Maybe something in the news, something on a medical report, maybe your bank statement, maybe something that somebody said that you live with, maybe somebody at office that dealt with you in the most inappropriate way. But this attack is relentless in a sense. And it drove these people to a passive kind of thing. I heard some of the soldiers talk about moving to Canada. Not really. Trying to escape what was happening with them there. Trying to get away from this pain and the suffering. Then David shows up. The Israelites said, have you seen this man who has come up, surely has come up to defy Israel? The king will greatly enrich the man who kills him and will give him his daughter and make his family free in Israel. David asked the man standing near him, what will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes his disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? David said, the Lord who saved me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will save me from the hand of this Philistine. So Saul said to David, go, and may the Lord be with you. What did David do? David brought something to the conversation that did not exist. You see, while Saul and his army were lying there, they were looking at this giant and they were talking about the size of this guy, the bigness of his spear and the shield bearer and all the other things. And they were talking about the depression, how bad the country is doing and how horrible things are. They were getting more and more depressed and darkened and passive about all the things around them. The moment when David approached, he brought something to their communication that I think did not exist. He started to talk about God. He said, the God I know can do something that no one else can do. That was my question then for myself. Who is my God? Who is our God? Thursday, a week ago, we had a presbytery meeting. And I was asked, and I was really glad they did this. You know how I feel about lots of stuff that happens in our church. But I was asked to lead an hour-long discussion on a topic that I could choose. And I led a topic on evangelism. So 50, 60 people met with me at a roundtable sort of discussion. And I shared with my group the following. I said, the nuns, the religious nuns, the people who do not believe in the church anymore, do not want to go to church anymore, so they would say we are non-religious. They are now 23% of the population in America. 57 million people do not affiliate themselves with any religion anymore. Christians have fallen from 78% to 71% since 2007. These statistics are for 2014. In his book, The American Church in Crisis, a guy with the name David Olson said that 77% of Americans who see themselves as Christian, that small group that still are left, do not have a consistent, life-giving connection with a local church. he states that 23% who consider themselves as regular church attendees attends church 3 out of 8 Sundays that comes by. So my question to the group was the following. How do we share the gospel of Christ in a world that is not interested in religion anymore? I had 2 other questions, but that's where I started. Do you know what the answer was? One person said, do you know what we do? What we do is we have this huge kitchen at our church, and we have this project to feed the hungry. I said, cool, explain more. So she told us how they get the food, how they prepare the food, how they distribute the food, and how the lines of people are getting more and more coming to get food at their church. And I said when she was done, awesome. What does anyone else do? And some people said, but we would like to know more about your food giving process. And they started to talk about this a little bit more. And somebody else said, well, we also have a food bank or whatever. And then I stopped the group and I said, one more question. Of all these people that you guys have served food, are they saved? If any one of them would die today, will they go to heaven? Because they met Christ at your church? They met the Christ of the Bible? They know who God is? Dead silence. Dead silence. I said the reason why I gathered you together today is that I want to remind you that we've got this amazing task. And that's to help people to discover the only holy, living God, that through Jesus Christ is the only one that can save us because Jesus is the Savior. And one of the people in my group said, and that's where my problem is. I said, what is your problem? He said that Jesus is the only way of salvation. And he's part of a church. He's a leader of a church in our presbytery. And I said to him, how is it possible that there can be so many other doors if one door is soaked in blood to the cross? Why would God have this door that's soaked in blood and you can walk through any other door if you want to? It's impossible. Well, we will have a discussion about this later, he said to me. I said, yeah, we will. But then we continued with our thing then, where I tried to help him to understand who this God is that we believe in, the God that David knew, but the people of Saul didn't know anymore. And when I look at our church and at our culture, I see people that sit with the soldiers of Saul, and they look at the giants. They have no clue what to do with this world anymore because they've lost God. They do not know who God is anymore. That we have a living God that can actually do amazing miracles in the lives of people. But the problem is that we do not even have him part of our conversation anymore. We talk about the problems in the country and our concerns and our depression and our fears, but we never add to it the fact that I believe that even though our politics is messed up and that everything in our country is so messed up, I've got a God I believe in that can save us. And a God that can help us find our way through all of this, as he helped David help Israel get through this crisis they had. But David said to the Philistine, you come to me with a sword and spear and javelin. I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This very day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down and cut off your head, and I will give the dead bodies of the Philistine army this very day to the birds of the air, to the wild animals of the earth, so the earth may know that there is a God. And that all this assembly may know that the Lord does not save by sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into my hand. This quote is from Amos, where I sort of started. David talks about the armies of God. He didn't really refer now to the guy standing behind Saul that is shivering because they are so afraid of this giant. It is very easy to feel alone. You know, there's this thing. A while ago, somebody came to me a few times and said, you know, I can't sleep. I said, what happened? He says, I wake up every morning at 4. I said, yeah, 4 is our friend now, isn't it? Because you and I know this, that if you are a little bit stressed out, you know, you wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning, you can't sleep anymore. That's a lonely time of night when you lie in the dark and your mind is rushing. You're thinking through all the things that you need to deal with that sometimes feels to overwhelm you. Very lonely. People next to you are your wife, your wife, husband next to you are sleeping. Yeah. Delete. The people in the house are all sleeping. And it's only you and your thoughts. You can get away from anything and anyone, but you can't get away from yourself and your own thoughts. Very lonely sometimes to be in that spot. So people try to take another medicine because they are afraid of this insomnia thing. Because they can't deal sometimes with their own head and their own thoughts. I think what David is trying to tell us here is that we are never alone. We may not see God, but God is with us. But what we need to know is that our enemy is also God's enemy many times. We are not alone in this battle. God knows what's going on in this country. Don't you worry. He knows what's happening in this culture. God knows what's happening in the terrorist world and how they are trying to take our freedom away. God knows what's happening in His church. He knows what happened at our last presbytery meeting and what's going to happen next week at our General Assembly meeting that's going to happen in Portland, Oregon. God knows exactly what's happening, and He knows what's happening in your life, and He knows your giants. He knows your Goliaths. That is sometimes standing in front of you and you have no answer. And God says, remember, this is also my enemy. And I will help you deal with it. The problem is many times this, that if we focus on the giant, then we stumble. And that's what happened here. The army of Israel looked at the giant, and the giant was so overpowering to them that they lost their hope, and they lost their ability to function. They lost their ability to do what they were supposed to do, and that's to attack this guy. But if you focus on God, then your giants stumble. My last slide. So what did David do there? David was supposed to be in the field. He's a boy. He was taking care of the sheep. And his dad called him in. He said, hey, David, come here. I want you to take some food to your brothers that are fighting this battle. They're not fighting, they're sitting around being, And David left his sheep with someone else. And I think he was two things. He was extremely curious to see what's going on in the battlefield. And he had to go because his dad said that he should go. So there's this little boy finding himself all the way to the battlefield, and he eventually finds his brothers and says, what's going on here? And they start to talk to him. And he's not supposed to be there. He's not in the army. Why take his brother's food? Aren't the army supposed to provide for them? Well, his dad wanted to know how his brothers are doing, but he could have sent a slave. Why his son? How many times in my life have I asked myself, why did I end up in this situation? A while ago, Louise and I were driving home from church, and just underneath the bridge there, underneath the turnpike on the Popke Road, a woman spun out and she destroyed one tire. And it was raining and she was sitting there. She didn't look well, so I stopped, ran back eventually. Now I had this problem, this woman and this car. Eventually, I got the car, the whole wheel was busted. I got the car to my house. That's not that far. I have a rim. We got the thing there because I've got all the tools to take it off and whatever. But it was raining, soaking, and I had my family at home. They just came in from South Africa, and I had to go and barbecue, whatever. And I thought to myself, Ferdi, what did you get yourself into? You could have just waved and gone by. Shoot, man. And at some point, she said to me, why are you helping me? I said, because I have to. Because you were in need. I said, and she's my little cop car thing, this thing I drive was standing outside. She said, you're the sheriff. I said, no sheriff. I said, no, but I'm a pastor in a church. And I believe in the Lord, and I believe the Lord wanted me to help you today. And if you want me to help you with some other things, your life, yourself, I'm here. Maybe that day her giant was slain. Because I got involved with something that I didn't have time for, and it was really not comfortable, I promise you. So sometimes you and I may find ourselves in situations that we say, what did I get myself into here? Like David. I think when he started to walk down that little creek with his little stone in his hand, he said to himself, what the heck am I doing here? Look at this guy. And I'm just here, and Goliath says, do you think I'm a dog that you come to me with a stick? But David had God in his heart. And God in his mind. No. David had God in his vocabulary, on his tongue, because he believed in a living God that he knew would use him wherever God wanted and wants to use him. We have many giants out there. Maybe your giant is in the office. Maybe your giant is at home. Maybe your giant is, I do not know where your giant is. It's very easy to run away and say, I don't want to deal with this giant. It's very easy to sometimes just say, let me just sit here, let the giant do its thing. But maybe it's time for us to approach the giant. And please don't shoot them, don't throw stones or rocks at them. But maybe it's time, in the name of our God, to say what sometimes needs to be said. Not to allow the world to shut you up because you believe in a living God. To have the courage and the boldness to say to people wherever you are, I believe and I am here to help you if you want to believe. If they don't want to, it's fine. But say and do what you and I need to do and say and do in this culture who does not know God. But know this, God is not only interested in building His kingdom, He's also interested in helping you with your giant. So pray. I believe that God can fix things in your life. In our world, the Brits family, a few years ago, we had a giant that I can't explain to you today how big that giant was. That was impossible to slay. And the only holy, living God slain that giant for us. It's impossible what He did. I still can't believe it. I've never in my life prayed that much. And I think all of us. God, now one day I'll tell you the story. But God slayed that giant. Pray, because the God we believe in is a living God, and your giant He can take care of. Face Him.